She did very well. Thank you so much. So I know that we've got a panel. So as we're welcoming up the panel, I just wanted to appreciate you, Małgosia, for all of your perseverance and tenacity, your commitment to do the work. And I want to thank Heather Bettini and Arturo, too, from our Spark Point program and Economic Justice Focus, who are also here on our staff supporting you and others like you. So thank you so much. And Kevin, your leadership is inspiring, your ability to center equity. I want to thank you for that, to have that be the center point for your strategies to move that work accessible to all. So I want to thank you for your impact and your effort. Thank you so much. So we want to again invite you to note your questions based on what you're seeing and hearing and how you're feeling about the efforts that Kevin put on the screen earlier around their strategies. But we've got an amazing panel here of leaders, the leadership team of United Way Bay Area. And we have some questions that we've settled on in advance that I think are really good. But let's do some introductions first. So maybe I could start right here.
Thank you so much. Carolina Martin, Vice President of Development.
Wait, and you said you have a fun fact, right?
Oh,
You have a fun fact?
My fun fact is that I've played all sports growing up.
All right.
Hi, I spoke a little earlier, but I'm Christopher Brini, Chief Advancement Officer at United Way Bay Area. And I guess I was sharing a fun fact earlier that my kid was born the day before I started here. So he's 2 years and 5 months old, which is how long I've been working here.
Hi, my name is Wendy Chung Hesselin. I am our Vice President of Operations. And my fun fact, gosh, I actually am from around here. I grew up in Petaluma. I didn't even know that.
Good afternoon. My name is Anna Lee. I'm Senior Vice President Impact Strategies, and my fun fact is that I used to break dance.
Laura Escobar, Vice President of Safety Net Services. And I'll just say my fun fact is I have twins. And then a younger one. We were willing to, one more. So 3 kids, and I've been at United Way 34 years as of June 1st. So, yeah. But I'm still a child.
All right, so thank you, panel. And I've got a question for you first, please. You have a regional strategy. You cover 8 counties. There's a lot of work going on. We know that needs can often be local and specific. So how does United Way, I so apologize, United Way Bay Area, how do you take a regional strategy and make it specific to the local needs of the community?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think one of the things I love about the Bay Area is the diversity and how different every community is. So the city of Novato, for example, is very different from the East San Jose, and just even in the county, right? Marin County, just places are very different. And so in our partnerships in our communities, I think we get to really tailor solutions and programs and our partnerships that are really local to the community to really listen to what ambassadors are saying and tailor to those needs. And we also get to take this regional approach. And as Kevin Zook mentioned, that we're one of the very few regional entities, and so we can say, the Spark Point Center here in Oakland is doing this. They're going to share this with the Spark Point Center in Marin, or the 211 in these counties are working together. So we really get to take this regional approach to really share the best practices and see what's happening in each area, and we also get to really tailor the solutions to the local community. What do they need? What are the ambassadors in these communities saying? And what are community partners saying? And then so we can really sort of get that high level, but also really be really in these communities and throughout the Bay Area.
All right. So note your questions, right? If you have anything, raise your hand. We'll have the microphone coming around. Thank you. Carolina, in the work, anti-racism, your DEI strategies are critically important. You cover a lot of territory with a lot of partners. How do you seek across sectors to bring people together to establish partnerships that serve the goal of that work?
Thank you for that question. I think before I go right there, I think one of the things that I've really appreciated is when Kevin took leadership about 3 years ago, we did a stakeholder engagement before our strat plan of how are we showing up with an anti-racist lens? How are you seeing us? And that really informed our extensive goal and our plan that Kevin laid out. And I think what we're doing with our partners within each region is having these honest conversations about our journey internally and externally, and how are we both collectively showing up with our impact. And, as we talk about the people we serve, people know what they want. We can't tell them what they need, right? So that's actually seeing people with a value and valuing how they're showing up. And I think one of the things that we've done as an organization is hired someone that's really helping us thinking through how within each region we're showing up with an anti-racist lens, looking at the systemic barriers that are happening within these communities. So, in having those authentic conversations, a lot of our, whether they're corporate partners, government partners, or community-based partners, we're all still in this journey together. And it's about being authentic and being honest. And so that's how we're trying the best we can, because it's evolving.
Thank you.
I don't know if
We know
anyone-
it's evolving, right? We know that we've seen so much change in such a short period of time over the last few years, completely unexpected. I think the deep listening that we said was needed and is part of why we're all here today is a really important part of it. And then we get to learn and evolve at the same time. So thank you for that. Christopher, I'm going to go to you. I know that we focused a lot in the conversation, and Kevin, in your presentation, on impact and the numbers and the dollars. How are you seeing making that impact come alive? Can you share a little bit of your thinking with us?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of data. So one of the things that is our strength, right, is that we have this regional view that Anna talked about. We have some of those great pieces of data that Kevin lifted up. But we can't bring them alive without telling the stories of the folks who are impacted by poverty. And speaking to what Carolina was just talking about, I just want to add that I think we can't do anti-poverty work without being race explicit and without being explicit about the disproportionate impact of poverty on persistently and historically marginalized communities. Really lifting that in everything that we do, and making sure that through storytelling of our partnerships, storytelling of the impact that our ambassadors have experienced, really lifting up their innate assets and power. And the folks that struggle in poverty are incredibly inspiring and brave and powerful, and our job is really to show up with resources that can support them, so that they don't have to struggle with unfair boundaries and barriers that have been created, in many cases intentionally, by our society. So it's really about, I think all my work particularly feels like it's about storytelling and about partnerships. So leaning into the relationships that we have, both with our community partners, with our funding partners, our donors, and with the folks that we get to be in community and serve is really the key.
And I was just going to join in really quick, is that I think what's amazing about United Way Bay Area is we just had our centennial. So our partners, corporate partners, they trust us, right? They trust us to know the community, so that enable us to think through what the future looks like ahead in partnership.
All right, so Christopher, I'm going to go back to you with a follow-up question. You've got some pretty audacious goals, right, for fundraising and success metrics and achievements year over year to meet the objectives in your strategic plan. How are you and the team, and how are you going to bring others into the work of being successful around that impact?
Yeah, what a great question. We have to go together, right? So like I said, it's about partnership. We're also doing some really intentional things like showing up at these regional town halls to make sure people understand what it is that we do. One of the big challenges that we face is a lot of people have heard the name United Way or United Way Bay Area specifically, and because folks have heard of us, they think they know what we do. And what we do is complicated, so we're also faced with that challenge, right? So it's our job to unpack what we do, break it down, be specific, and inspire people to join us. And that includes, building new corporate partnerships, tapping into the wealth gap that we're trying to dismantle, and really building a bridge between the wealthy companies and individuals in this region that Kevin mentioned, and making sure folks understand that we can't be successful as a region bifurcated that way, right? We have to do that work together, and we have to thrive as a region together. So that's our job.
And I'll also say that I think a way that we're leading is trying to do it by example internally as well. So, as our operations lead, we're doing a lot internally. When we talk about DEI, it's not externally, but also what we're doing within our human resources. How are we hiring, addressing unconscious bias? How are we incorporating DEI goals into each and everyone's personal goals and their performance goals? I know we have a long ways to go, but I think modeling that internally also promotes, our mission as well.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the room. Any questions in the house for our panel? I've got more. Oh, go ahead, Linda. Yeah? Yeah.
Linda Jackson. I'm with the Aging Action Initiative, and welcome to Marin. We're so glad you're here. I'm going to wear my hat working and advocating for older adults, but I'm also on the school board with Catalina, and so happy to talk about kids as well, and I really applaud the work that United Way is doing for that. I want to note a study that the county just completed that the United Way might want to be aware of about the Integrated Aging Services Study, and there's data in here about older adults. And Marin County is kind of leading the way on the number of people turning older. We had a lot of folks move here after the war. And the first baby boomer just turns 80 in what year? The first baby boomer is going to become 80 years old in what year? Think about when the baby boomers were born. So you're going to turn 80 in just 3 years. And there's a lot of baby boomers, another 20 years of baby boomers after them. There's a lot of folks going to be aging. And we know that when they're 75, you're aging into poverty. That 25% number for Marin County, 25% of older people are low income. And that is absolutely a sin. You would think that when you get older, I'm 68, I'm fine, I want everybody to be fine. But there's a lot of people that their Social Security does not keep up with the rising rents. And the 42% calling in about housing, I bet in Marin, a fair number of them are older because they're worried about having to move into their car. If you saw the movie Nomadland, that's what that's all about. So my question for you is about housing. I know you're advocating for rent control, I believe. And the only housing that's being built in Marin, that may change, but right now, is accessory dwelling units. And I hope that that rent control is not applied to them because that's the fastest way to stop housing for older people so they can stay in their homes and for younger people who are moving into those ADUs. So anyways, I want to know where you are with your rent control work and with encouraging housing to be built because that's what we really need for all ages in Marin County.
Okay. Well, thank you for the question. We actually have an ambassador that lives older ambassador that lives in Marin County. And one of the things that she talks about is we really try to tell her story, but they want to remain anonymous. They want to not really come forward with their name, so they're not doing these like speaking engagements or anything like that. But through but she participates in so many like virtual activities, and she's also talked about sort of the wanting to stay in her home, but sort of almost like living in fear that she might lose her housing, and she has to work part-time and the Social Security is not enough. So exactly what you're saying. So one of the things we really do is try to tell that story, to amplify stories like that, which is what we're doing with our ambassadors. So in our policy work and housing policy work, definitely we're trying to advocate for rent control, for things like more housing and preservation of housing, things like that. I think that every city, like we said, we're sort of a regional entity. Every city jurisdiction has different ways that they're advocating for it. We support organizations where parents, for example, are really rallying together and trying to advocate for that. So it sort of looks different in every community and how it's how the advocacy is happening. But that's why we have people like Monica, for example, who just presented. She's really focused on the North Bay, trying to figure out what are the policy efforts that are happening and how can we best support those efforts.
And, this is on my mind as I work with a lot of the basic needs agencies like Homeward Bound in this county, the food bank. I was at a site visit, so part of my job is to funnel some federal money that comes through United Way into our 8 counties. And it's usually $3 million, but with ARPA money, it was up to $11.4 million. So I had a lot of fun last year. Giving out $11.4 million. And it all goes to shelters, dining centers. So one of the agencies, and I do site visits, I go out. I have the proud record of visiting every shelter in the Bay Area and dining center, and I enjoy, the partners like Homeward Bound and all these partners who work in basic needs work, they're my heroes, right? I'm just like a small character in the background. But what really struck me this last 6 months is visiting St. Vincent de Paul in Marin, and with Meredith. I'm sure a lot of people know Meredith. And they get some money for prevention, right? So trying to keep people in their homes, that's really important to us. We fund a lot of that work. We did, especially during COVID, we did a lot of prevention work to keep folks in their homes. But she said right now on the streets of Marin, I know of 50 seniors living in their cars, and they could move somewhere else and, afford housing on their Social Security, but that means leaving their churches, their friends, their doctors, like their community. So they'd rather live in their car and, struggle along. And that, I sat with that for a really long time. And so, yes, it's how can we make that not happen? And that's what I'm thinking about, we're thinking about, our Spark Point's thinking about it, because there has been an uptick. Part of what we do as Spark Point is provide that backbone and data, and we see that more older adults, and this came up recently, and we as staff had a conversation about it. So we're thinking about it. I want to see that study, and it's very present. And food is, I heard, as driving in today, the reduction of CalFresh, and older adults are really going to suffer. They have a fixed income, and we all know what eggs cost. So we all know what eggs cost. So.
And I was just going to say, if I can jump in for a second, Linda, I'm so happy you're here because I think we could learn a lot from what's happening in Marin, and I know that's why I'm excited for you to meet with some of our peers and our colleagues. So yeah, thank you for lifting that.
Thank you. Any other questions in the room? Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Adriana Radkin, Director of Marin VOA, and I would love to hear how you, do I need it? Yeah. Sorry, I'm not sure. It's on? Okay. Oh, yeah, now it is. Adriana Radkin, Director of Marin VOAD, and I would love to hear you speak a little bit about growth of some of your project areas, specifically Spark Point as an example. How do you, are you looking to grow it? Do you, what is the process for that, specifically in Marin County? This is where I'm based, and I work with all of our disaster service nonprofit providers. So I'm just curious if you can talk a little bit about the growth of the program and what you do to further that.
I'll start. Looking at Nicole, she's had 2 to 3 requests to start a Spark Point Center in the past week. She's like, stop. So when Spark Point launched in 2009, I think there was a goal to have one Spark Point Center in every county in the Bay Area in once a year. And then in 4 years, we had 10, 15, and sort of grew exponentially. So one of the things we did 2 years ago was we partnered with the College Futures Foundation to develop a Spark Point toolkit. So we're in the process of piloting that, and that's specific to post-secondary institutions. Like Kevin mentioned, half of our Spark Point centers are in community colleges or post-secondary, and so we have a toolkit that sort of explains what Spark Point is, what is the process to plan a Spark Point Center, who should be involved, and what's the staffing structure, what does the budget look like, what does the staffing look like. So it's a toolkit, so we developed that, and then we're still sort of in the pilot processes. We're also trying to figure out what does it look like to grow, and so is it like a franchise model? So we sort of are working on this business model right now. There's definitely a lot more need and interest in Spark Point than Nicole can respond to at this point. So it's definitely a top of mind. We're really right now at the point of sort of solidifying this toolkit, this business plan, because I think the model of Spark Point, the beauty of Spark Point, and why people really, and community agencies like yours, and in Marin, they really like it, is this partnership aspect. It's really, like Malgosia mentioned, valuing people's strengths and their whole, and I think that really resonates with people, and so we're really trying to make sure that in the growth process we keep the things that make Spark Point really valuable and really unique.
I'll just jump in to say, and maybe share a little anecdote. We were recently at a meeting of leaders across United Ways across the state of California, and one of the interesting things that surfaced was this is not a program that exists in multiple other United Ways, right? It's something that started here and has grown here and has been proven effective here, and other United Ways are like, how do we get these across the state? Maybe there's other places outside the state that also want it. So and that's the case, I think, because of some of the things that Anna was talking about, some of the things Kevin was talking about. It's a perfect example of why United Way Bay Area's model is so powerful. It leverages that regional insight, it localizes, it brings together partners into one place to help people where and how they need to be helped. Not that they have to go to 6 different agencies individually and go through intake at 6 different agencies, but they can come to one place and get that support. And it's powerful, and it is, I think, one of our greatest growth opportunities, if I can be so bold to say that. And one of the places that people get it the most. Donors get it the most. Our funding partners get it really quickly, and I think a lot of investment ought to be heading in that direction. And yeah, that will include, folks are talking about spreading it across the state. We're like, yeah, well, we still need more growth of SparkPoint within our own region. But I think it's a yes and we'll be looking at ways to do that effectively.
I want to add to this, if I may, as a SparkPoint Center at Community Action Marin, because the model is so successful and because we've been able to have so much success and incredible stories emerging of what it looks like for individuals, those stories are powerful. And so when we talk to prospective funders, we have incredible conversations because there's the evidence base, because there's the data, because there are the stories. And when you put that in front of those potential donors, they do get it. And we've been able to grow and increase the number of coaches that we have in Marin because of that database, because of that success. So thank you so much for giving us those tools and for working on a business model that's going to expand the reach and impact, I think, over geographies, right, and over communities. So thank you for that. Are there any other questions in our audience? You have another one?
I have another one on a different topic.
Okay.
Okay, so one more. This one is about immigrants. So people don't know, Carolina and I know, because in our school we have over 50% of our students are Latinos. They speak Spanish at home. And that's not a common fact about Marin County. But it's the workers in the Canal neighborhood, and they move to apartments across the county, so it's not just San Rafael, that provide the quality of life that we enjoy in Marin County. The immigrants started coming in the 80s. They've worked for 40 years. They're retiring. So our construction industry is really contracting because it's losing a lot of their workers. That's one of the reasons you don't have a lot of service workers. Places, retirement homes aren't able to hire. Because it's the folks that do the food and do the service. But they did not make a lot of money. So when they get Social Security, so they were generally legalized under Reagan's Reagan of all people, but the immigration reform that happened in the 80s, they don't get a big Social Security check like you do if you're a higher income professional. And so there's another group of older people who are immigrants, and they are struggling to get Medicare. They're struggling to find out how they qualify for services. So what is that on your radar screen in helping the older immigrants in Marin County or in the Bay Area as they reach this point in their lives?
I mean, maybe I'll just start with, on immigrants specifically, when I got here, I think one of the things I was most proud that we were doing was connected to our free tax help work and making sure and clear, and even from a media and advertising perspective, which is part of my gig in partnership with the Impact team, is to make sure people know that if you have an ITIN, you can file for some of these really significant tax credits and get some of the support that you are entitled to get. And the systems are designed in such a way that even if you're supposed to get this support, it's very difficult to get it to understand even what an ITIN is. And so we've got folks who can help sit with you, do it for you, look through your information with you. And so I think that's a particularly important thing, and to be really explicit externally in our communications about the languages in which that support is available, and that the status of your documentation has nothing to do with whether you can or cannot receive this support from us or through these government programs.
And I'll just say that the EFSP money that I help manage at United Way Bay Area, it's federal money, but because it's emergency money that comes through programming, there's no immigration or test. So food. A lot of our food pantries and meals and shelters, they don't ask, they don't know. Even if we wanted that data, they wouldn't have it because they don't ask. So that, and even for prevention, where you're giving some, and you would say, okay, food, but prevention, certainly, nope, so when agencies call me and are thinking of applying, and they ask that question, I'm like, nope, there's no no status. That's why I'm glad Representative Huffman's staff is here, because this is a federal program, and it is very important in the community. So.
Yeah, I was going to add, so I think it was 216 partners organizations that we work with. Many of them have expertise in working with the immigrant populations. So our really expertise is really finding those nonprofit organizations and really partnering with them on free tax help or on SparkPoint or various programs. And some of them run multiple, right? One agency, for example, could run a free tax help site and a SparkPoint site in serving immigrant populations. On the data side, we have a data research evaluation team. Tracking immigration status is also very complicated. I think we have proxy indicators. We're really trying to figure out what is the best way to really cater services and needs to those populations. One of the work of SparkPoint centers, for example, is at community colleges, is they work with the Dream Centers, and we know that that is an immigrant population. So really trying to figure out who are the people in the Bay Area that are working with the immigrant populations, and how can we best partner with them to get the services they need.
And I was just going to say, and I hope this is right, like some of our SparkPoint ambassadors are new to this country, and so they also educate us, and they also help lift up the voices of their communities as being ambassadors. So I think we always look at the holistic approach. So.
Yeah, we have like 30 or so ambassadors, and they speak like 8 or 9 different languages, or maybe even more.
Fantastic. I think we have time for a couple more questions, if there are any in the audience. Okay, please. Oh. I apologize. This is my blind spot.
Hi, I'm Sade Barb. I'm here representing the Community Action Marin, the division, the care team. And I was wondering, what type of services do you guys have for the homeless community? And or if there's any funding for them to get like housing, or how do we go about that? It's been a lack of, kind of services right now. I don't know if it's due to the COVID or what have you. So is there anything you guys can, I can write it down and see if I can bring it back to the team and see if we can do anything for them?
So I'm your girl, and so as I mentioned, part of what I do is overseeing, well, I would say there's 2 things. One is 211, right? Our basic service call center. United Way runs 211 in this county. Little known fact, people might know what 211 is, but they don't connect it to United Way. So that is, calling, and that is resources. We're redesigning our webpage for 211 to make it, we got ambassador input to make it more user-friendly and better. So that work has been there. I started my job here at United Way as a call center specialist for homelessness prevention. So this is my work, my passion, if you can't tell. And then the other piece is this federal money that I mentioned that comes into community. So probably in the next month, I'll be releasing an RFP in Marin. It's not a lot of money, but these are the things we look at. We'll look at every year. And so there's a committee that, decides on.
Right over here. Thank you.
Oh, hi, I'm Patricia Sullivan from Disability Services and Legal Centers, Napa office. We help people with disabilities and seniors, and the bar for disability is pretty low. If somebody says they have a disability or chronic illness, we generally help them, with the exception of Social Security. When we help them with Social Security, we have to go by Social Security rules. We also help veterans, and I've tried to work with veterans, getting them to the veteran service officers, and I've had seniors say they won't go because the Social Security got cut off because they got help from the veteran services, and I wish they could work better together. I want to give a shout out for the tax service. I have an invisible disability, and I've used the tax service probably for about 15 years, and have used Up Valley Family Center in St. Helena because they have a higher level of training and have, when I had a little more complication, the people in Napa weren't able to do it. So I'd encourage you to try to encourage people to do more training so they can handle more cases too, about the more little complications. And I also sit on the Napa Valley Community Housing Board. There's really a shortage in Napa, as other places in the Bay Area, for affordable and workforce housing. I just wanted to say that I also sit on the Napa County Mental Health Board, and there is a lot of progress coming for people who are homeless and have mental health and substance use disorders in the near future, I hope. So I just was wondering, with all those things that we're doing, I wasn't aware that you had 3 Spark points in Napa. When I called for a consumer, I think I was sent down to Vallejo. How do I go about finding out more information about what's available in Napa? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question.